Today we're covering installation of a loaded strut assembly in this 2001 Chrysler Sebring. We'll install Duralast loaded struts in the front and rear for a faster, easier install and better ride control. Now you can do this job at home with hand tools. You'll need these tools for the job. Bigger tools like the torque wrench and the 32mm deep socket you can borrow from AutoZone through the Lug Nuts To program. You'll also need a good hydraulic jack, some jack stands, and wheel chocks. Make sure the car is in park with the parking brake on before starting. At the wheel, loosen the lug nuts and then raise the car with a hydraulic jack and set the car on a jack stand. Be sure to use secure jack points. Remove the lug nuts and the wheel. Use a 10mm socket to remove the brake hose bolt. Remove the lower strut pinch bolt using a 18mm and 15mm sockets. You may need some help from a mallet and a punch to get this out. Loosen the upper control arm nut using a 22mm wrench and a 6mm Allen wrench. Knock the steering knuckle loose from the upper control arm and remove the nut. Remove the axle nut using a 32mm socket. Knock the axle loose with a punch and mallet. Remove the axle from the spindle assembly. Remove the nut from the lower control arm assembly using an 18mm and 15mm. Knock the bolt out of the lower control arm using the punch and mallet. Remove the 4 top strut mount bolts using an 18mm. Carefully remove the strut assembly from the vehicle. Using a punch, spread the lower strut mount assembly to remove the strut. Using 2 15mm wrenches, remove the upper control arm bolts and nuts. Remove the control arm and install on the new strut assembly. Install the control arm mounting bolt nuts. Position the control arm at a 90-degree angle to the mounting bracket and tighten the bolts to a torque of 66 foot-pounds. Gently reinstall the assembly. Tighten the top 4 strut mount bolts. Install the lower strut mount and remove the punch from the collar. Insert the axle into the spindle assembly. Connect the upper control arm to the spindle. Torque the axle nut to 150 foot-pounds. Install the lower control arm bolt and nut to the lower strut mount. Use a jack to raise the lower strut mount into the strut assembly. Tighten the shock absorber clevis to the lower control arm bushing through bolt nut to a torque of 65 foot-pounds. Install the brake hose bolt. Install the wheel. And torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Then lower the vehicle. Repeat on the other side and you're ready to move to the rear. For the rear, raise the car and remove the wheel following the same safety procedures as the front. Remove the brake hose bolt using a 10mm. Loosen the sway bar bushing using a 13mm on both sides. Loosen the 4 control arm bolts and nuts using 18mm on both sides. This will give the arms flexibility. Remove the lower strut mount bolt and nut using 2 18mm. Inside the vehicle, pull back the interior carpeting to expose the 2 upper strut mount nuts. Remove the top strut mount nuts using a 15mm deep socket. Under the car, remove the 2 clips from the strut to the wheel well. Knock the strut out and remove the assembly. Install the new assembly. Install the lower mounting bolt and nut. Install the upper strut mount nuts and install the interior carpet. Install the 2 plastic clips from the strut to the wheel well. Tighten the 4 lower control arm bolts and nuts. Tighten the sway bar link. Install the brake hose bolt. Install the wheel and then torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Repeat on the other side, and you're done. We recommend going for a test drive, getting an alignment, and enjoying your new suspension.
Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone.